My quilting plan for the peppermint forest side of the runner is switching to my Clarefoot, which has some markings to help get measurements, to do some echo quilting around these images. I was doing stitch in the ditch, which getting it perfectly in there isn't super easy. So I think if I just stitch really close to the outside edge evenly, it's going to hide any errors and still give you that kind of pop out effect. And I think that's a little more invisible for people that aren't super skilled. I am having to twist and turn this quilt quite a bit. I'm also not worrying about stopping and starting because the back is just raw batting. I'm going to be doing a lot more quilt as you go, the technique that adds the backing later. The next step is to do ruler quilting. You know, I have a beginner set of templates and I found this little scallop here, which I think looks kind of good on the bottom of these trees. Okay, I'm gonna reposition my ruler. I found this template and I thought I would just see how this works in a triangle. I just did the shape here and then here, and it kind of overlaps in the middle, and here. And I'm gonna spin the template rather than the quilt itself. What I kind of devised for myself is to only work with a piece that's small enough, so that means I'm going to probably do quilt as you go to not have to worry about the back. I'm going to add a back later in the quilt as you go method where you kind of bag it on. So you do all your quilting only to the batting. My back is pretty much a mess, but that gave me a lot of freedom as far as starting and stopping. Very first thing I would do is all of the straight line quilting with just a regular walking foot or just your regular foot. I first started with some stitch in the ditch, and then I realized that I preferred to do more an echo quilting where it's just outside the line because that was more forgiving. I also did that echo quilting kind of around this tree, around all of these blocks, around these squares, around this square. So I kind of echoed these shapes. My next step was to change to my ruler foot. It's their basic starter kit, and I've been just playing with the shapes that came with it. The ones I ended up using was the circle and the inside circle, because you can also use the outside shapes too. And then I used this teardrop, and then I ended up using this kind of shell. So I think anywhere where it's going to show is where I wanted to use a ruler. So here's an example of where I used that little shell, just kind of creating this little tree line. And I liked it so much I actually added another layer. I did a better job of knowing kind of where to line it up so that it was more symmetrical. Whereas my first try, just where I didn't really line up with anything in particular. And I just started laying them on things and seeing, you know, where could I put this? These happen to fit fairly perfectly over each of these little patchwork border squares. So I decided to just create a little snowball. You know, it's kind of a winter theme. There were times when it didn't line up perfectly, so I'd have to travel just a little bit to get it to realign. Okay, now stage 3 is the hardest and most frightening one, which is free range, free motion. So I don't know if I'll ever get good at this. I only was willing to do it at this point, white on white. If I couldn't do it well on the tester fabric, I just abandoned that shape. I found that I could do kind of these little curly Q loops in this band here. The other place I did it was in these. I wanted the red to pop, so there's no quilting there, but these white parts are quilted down fairly densely, and I just used a meander. People say meander is easy, but I find it really hard. You know, I kind of get lost and loop over myself a little. The last place I did true free motion was the background white of this tree, and I thought it kind of looked like a blustery, snowy day, so it's just kind of going around making a hook and then turning direction and making a hook. And so there are plenty of mistakes, but I think they'll just be hidden.